Ask a question? Do you have 10? Do you have 10? Oh, that clock's wrong then. Yeah. Cody. Hey, Cody. Cody. Why don't you come on up and I'll let you talk first since that's tonight. Okay? And we have had a lot of candy. I saw Alice's office yesterday. Is it enough? Good. Well, we might mention that. Good job. The pumpkins are so cool. Good morning, Butterfield Trail Village. It's so good to see you today. Hope everyone's doing good. We have some great announcements this morning, and I'd like to start off with Cody Crespin talking to us about this evening's Fall Festival. Cody?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. I was going to remind everyone that today is the last day to vote for one of the pumpkins out here next to the bistro. We'll be taking the ballot box away probably about 4 p.m. today. So if you haven't voted, go up there. There's some really cute ones this year. So it was great. We'll be doing that every year. We really like it. So, and then I was going to remind everyone about the Fall Festival tonight. It's 5 to 7 p.m. here in the Performance Hall. We have a bunch of kids, grandkids, employees, families, and everything come in here, mingle with the residents. We have games. A lot of residents have donated candy and taken that to my office or Alice Dawson's office, and that has been awesome. We definitely have enough candy. So if you want to come get a few pieces back, come to the party tonight, and you can get some. It's always fun, and get a pinch cheeks and whatnot. So I was just going to remind everyone about that and invite you all to come down if you have time.
Thank you, Cody, and thank you to the Employee Appreciation Committee for all their hard work. They try to do their best to help residents get to know staff, and this is a wonderful way that you can get to know people that you see on a daily basis working and providing you services here at Butterfield. I want to give you an update on the Spain hike. Everyone's doing great. They haven't lost anyone. Jennifer is just doing a fabulous job, and they're calling her their fearless leader. And she's just doing a great job, and they're seeing so many beautiful places along the Santiago de Camino Trail. They're just about to wrap it up, so they'll be flying home Monday, and they'll arrive at XNA late Monday evening. And I know they're having a good time, and they love Spain, but the best thing about travel is coming home. So I think they'll be glad to be home, and they'll be giving us lots of stories. And I've already coordinated with Jennifer to take all of their wonderful photographs and put it together in a presentation for those of you who are interested to see everywhere they went. You should have received your November calendars yesterday. There's things going on I want to mention in the first part of the week because I know it's easy to not look at the schedule right off the bat. Kelly Sire, Director of Marketing, did a wonderful job updating and taking residents' photos for the resident directory last week. So we have scheduled a time for those of you who had your photographs taken to come and select your favorite photo to go in the directory, and we'll provide you additional copies, a copy if you would like it for your personal use. The time is set next Thursday, November 2nd, and it'll be here in the Performance Hall in the back corner from 10 to noon, and then again from 2 to 4. So you can come by, and Nathan or I'll be here to help you go through the 4 or 5 pictures that Kelly took, and you can pick your favorite one. I have a tour going Friday the 3rd to Art Ventures of Northwest Arkansas. How many of you have ever been there? Raise your hand. It's a wonderful local art gallery that highlights local artists. It's in a beautiful restored home that was built in the late 1800s, and just that alone is something to see. And I know that many of you know Jay McDonald, who's a retired ophthalmologist, and he has just done the most amazing photography work and presented it on big pieces. So I wanted to catch his exhibit before it was finished. But what's happened is there'll be a new exhibit moving in, and his exhibit has been moved to Theater Squared. So we will visit the older home, the home of NWA Ventures. Then we'll go to Theater Square to see Dr. McDonald's artwork in the lobby of Theater Square. And then Saturday, more art. George Dombeck is opening his studio, as he does every fall, for people to come and take a look at his work. He has a beautiful studio on a beautiful piece of property, East Fayetteville. So we'll be running a bus there, and if we're fortunate, we'll get to visit with Mr. Dombeck and see his pieces. What's Saturday night? What do we need to do when we go to bed Saturday night? Turn the clocks back an hour so we can enjoy the most darkness in our lives that we can stand. If you could be in Congress right now for 5 minutes and I ask you to vote, would you like to keep the time where it is right now, or do you want to move the clock back? If you want to keep the time as is right now for eternity, raise your hand. Okay. But as we know, that won't come up and that won't get decided, as many things don't get decided. Okay, Thursday the 9th, I will host my Veteran Recognition Program. The theme this year is Answering the Call. It has been such an honor for me all these years to recognize our U.S. veterans that live at Butterfield or in our Carriage Club. And I hope you make time to visit or be here at 6:30 on Thursday the 9th for a presentation that I've put together. I have an alphabetized list of current veterans living at Butterfield at the transportation desk. You're welcome to go by to make sure your name is on there, but for our newer residents that have moved in since last November, I ask that you please add your name, branch of service, time served, and again, if you have a photograph that you would like to submit, I would be so honored to add that to our PowerPoint presentations. The pictures are fabulous. Everybody's so young and cute and in uniform, and it's just so much fun to watch the entire slideshow. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to call me or come by and see me. The week of the 13th through the 17th, I'm just going to deem that Nathan Seipold week. Nathan is our event technician, and he runs the Bird's Nest with the lights and the sound. But his father will be here on the 14th to give a presentation on train depots and cabooses. Mike Seipold is a train historian, and he's already given one program here at Butterfield. He's going to do a wonderful presentation with pictures and everything of depots in our Northwest Arkansas area. The next day, we're going to get on the Butterfield bus and go visit some of these depots, and he'll be there with us to walk us through the history, and he really has done a lot of research, so it's very interesting. Thursday night, the 16th, Nathan and his worship band, Relentless Worship Band, will be here to perform. It's going to be a little different than it was last time. Some of these worship bands, I know you're thinking, well, sometimes they get a little loud. I'm just going to say it because I feel the same way. But Nathan has taken all that into consideration. It's going to be a wonderful evening of worship music, and I hope you can all join him on that. The November town meeting, scheduled in November, will be the 17th. Is that right? Okay. but that doesn't follow the, moved up. Okay, so we've moved the town meeting up 1 week in November to the 17th. And just in case you want to pencil this in, I can give you the date of the Butterfield Trail Village Christmas party. Friday, December 15th, from 6 to 9. And the theme this year is Winter Forest Fantasy. And that's all I'm going to tell you. All right, are there any other announcements or any questions for me? Heather, do you have something? Okay, well, Heather has a report about the Arkansas Alzheimer's Association fundraiser, and then following her will be Jack Mitchell. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
I did not realize that today was going to be the day that I did this. So good morning. I just got notification that Butterfield Trail Village raised $10,686 for the Walk to End Alzheimer's Association. So I want to say thank you to everybody who helped contribute to that and donate your time, your energy, your money. Those who came to our walk. I say walk because we had it here in the performance hall just because of weather. And then those who came to the devastating Hogs and Hot Dog event that we unfortunately lost to LSU. So we did donate more than our goal. So we did exceed that. And then we also raised more money than any other organization or corporation, to include Walmart, J.B. Hunt, Tyson, than in the Northwest Arkansas area. So thank you guys so much for that. I appreciate you immensely. Thank you.
I'm going to move to the center. Well, good morning. Beautiful leaves out there right now, and when I came to work, they had all the blowers working, so I'm sure it stirred up a lot of allergies. It did mine. But I wanted to give you first a few updates of major projects that we have in place. Memo is in the back, but Memo, I'm going to start with the dining project, which is on schedule. The new buffet is in the manufacturing stage, and we're looking at downtime starting in January. Okay, January 8th, which means we're going to transition and a buffet line to bistro with some temporary dining areas in the back of the theater here, as well as the bistro and parts of the lobby. So anything different about that memo? No? All good? Okay. Hot water. I've heard lots of comments about hot water, all the way from not circulating to no hot water at all. So Mr. Permy has really investigated with a lot of detail and with some plumbing assistance by replacing valves, by looking at recirculating pumps, checking pressures. And in addition to that, we now have a system in place to check the boilers and the hot water holding tanks earlier in the morning. And so we do think that that's improved. I hope that you're seeing that in your units, and we'll continue to monitor that. So that's been a huge issue to really sort down to where the issues were, but I think we've got that well under control. The healthcare renovation project is on target to be completed by the end of the year. And right now we have everybody in one home pretty much. We did open the memory unit back up in the new space, and I've been through there. It looks very nice, but we're on schedule for that to open. And that was a huge project. And right now we didn't have the flexibility to totally roll out some of the things that we're doing to reorganize healthcare. But one of the things that we're going to do, in addition to some management changes that we've already had in healthcare, is when you all come back from a visit that you might have had to Washington Regional or Mercy or Northwest, and we are going to bring you back into healthcare, we're going to consider that a transition and assessment days. So we're going to have a private room set up specifically for that purpose. And what will happen during those couple of days of assessment, you'll have doctor visits, visits to therapy, and we'll be assessing your needs and your discharge orders from the acute care hospital. We'll also have a recliner sleeper, should you have someone that wants to stay with you in those private rooms during your re-entry to Butterfield. That's a big difference than coming into a semi-private room. I know we've had issues with that, but we're going to make that the standard as to transitioning back to Butterfield Trail Village. I mentioned a little bit about the reorganization. We did have a management change. Mike Wright is back in helping us out for a while. Of course, Deb, some of you have had reports on the healthcare committee and so forth. We had a nursing consultant in, and we're starting to roll out some of those changes. The biggest emphasis is going to be a more robust orientation and training for all the employees. So I think you'll see some changes there in terms of continued training. And that's sort of a segue to some of the budget discussion I'm going to have today. And it's relating to, many of you are aware, our biggest cost driver, our biggest budget item is labor. 80% of our operating budget is people paying salaries. And those of you who have lived in Northwest Arkansas for a long time and you've seen the robust growth, we're all competing for the service level employees. And so we've had a market adjustment. We had a consultant come in, look at our salaries, look at our entry level, service level positions. And in fact, we were behind. And so we're going to make some key adjustments to certain areas over the next couple of weeks. And we just need to do that to stay not only in the game. Recruitment is one thing, but retention is more important, because retention and retraining is really what costs the money. And you know, I've had many of you talk to me about housekeeping, about dining services. We're really starting to do well in some of our areas, but we need to continue to do well to be competitive in this micro economy of Northwest Arkansas, which, by the way, has an unemployment rate of 2.3%. And Jerry Rose, we actually met, and I presented the budget to the resident council yesterday, plus some additional folks. And it went very well, but I wanted to drive home the point that adjusting salaries is the major driver of some of our needs here, and we were a little bit behind. We don't want to be the market leader, but we certainly don't want to be the lagger. We want to be right in the game. And comment about that 2.3% unemployment rate. Jerry, who helps with the homeless community and serves a lot of meals, and his comment was, I think I know about all those 2.3% unemployed folks, and I'm not sure we want them here. Right, Jerry? So that was a must-do as going forward. What are the other areas that we've introduced to the board is we've never had a 5-year capital plan. And a 5-year capital plan means what are we going to do over the next 5 years in terms of prioritizing our maintenance and repair. And quite frankly, we got a little bit behind. So I was able to put together, with Joe Permy's help and others, a 5-year capital plan that looks at, first and foremost, safety and security issues. Many of you don't know, if you don't live in a cottage home, but behind the cottage homes, some of our asset is actually eroding away down the hill. But that's just not a problem with the land, it's also a safety and security issue. So we're looking at a safety and a safety fence along with a berm or a small wall that will prevent the erosion. And as we look around the perimeter, we're going to look at safety fences entirely around. Some of the village homes has as much as an 8 or 9 foot drop. So we just have to address those things that have been not addressed for a long time. The second one, and I'm hoping we might get an applause out of this, is we're going to invest in a $1.2 million cell phone repeater system. And what that means, I'm not the technical person that can describe this, but if you have questions, go to Gary. Because I told him he'd have a lot of folks. He's smiling back there. But Gary's done a really good job. We put out a bid. We got 3 firms that could entertain this type of activity. And so we did select one. The board approved it Wednesday night. And we'll be starting on that work and some pre-work actually next week. I think some of the parts are being. Now, what does that mean, a repeater system? Well, we have to negotiate, and we will get approval from AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile to allow their information to be carried over our repeater system. We have the firm says we have about a 95 to 98% confidence level that we can get every area in the campus covered. And I know how important that is. I had my mom in a facility in Maryland, and you know, if I called and she didn't answer, well, gosh, I was worried. So it's not only you all trying to call out, I know it's your friends and family members trying to call you. So a repeater system is basically a set of antennas in the apartments and the main buildings. They'll be in the hallways. In the village homes and the cottages, they're going to be in the garages or the carports. So that's the analysis. Gary, am I half correct on all that? Yeah? Okay. And again, that'll be starting some of the pre-work because it'll be running over fiber optical cable. And we have to do some pre-work with our fiber optical cable. And then you'll see some activity as early as December and January. I mentioned the safety fence. The other thing that's in the 5-year plan every year going forward is elevator replacement and enhancement. For those of you in 3 North, you'll recall we had an elevator down a couple months ago, right when I started, around the first week of August. And it took about 2 weeks to source the parts because you know what? That elevator is also 37 years old. So we're going to retrofit one elevator at a time and go forward until they're all completed. And then it'll be annual maintenance. And the other thing that has been overlooked is, for lack of a better term, the cottage foundation repair. I don't know how many years, Joe, let's just say 10 or 15 years of continuous buildup of mulch against the cottage walls has caused moisture damage and compromising the integrity of the wall and the foundation itself on the cottages. So we're going to dig all the mulch out, get it back down to an appropriate level, reboard with a product called Hardy Plank, which is a cement type of exterior, and make sure that the cottage homes are back to where they need to be. And, you know, I forgot to bring the color board, but I think it's in the boardroom, Joe. And then we're going to repaint all the cottages. And we're going to steer away from years and years of what's called beaver brown. And we've picked a lighter color. We actually ran this through a couple of the councils. And it's a sort of a mid-gray color, but it's going to brighten up the village in terms of the cottage homes. We have lots of other upgrades and smaller projects going on. Some of it is catch-up. And this results, the board has approved for 2024 an adjustment to the monthly service fee is 6%. Now, you know, we've talked about that, we've discussed that, and the obvious question that I know many of you would have is that's not going to be a continuation because it was 5% last year, it's 6% this year. It's our best guess, our best estimates by looking at what we're doing this year and the projects that we have in place for the next 4 years is it's not going to be a staircase up, it's going to be a step down. So more to come on that. I have the data available to you. We're going to make the 5-year plans available to you at the front desk if you want to look at the detail. And also important is what marketing uses when we have Carriage Club members come in and they talk about, we had the last 37 years of monthly adjustments as to how it's going up and down. Part of that is related to the economy, the consumer price index, and inflationary things, but it does trend over time. The average over the last 37 years, and I think Kim calculated, is 4.47%. So this is one of the higher years, but we don't see that as a go-forward concern. Because of that, the board has agreed. Oh, that's the color. Yes. And this goes well. Joe has gotten some consultation with some decorators as well as Sherwin-Williams. And this goes well with the rock. That was some of the colors you put in front of the rock looks odd, but this was the best match that we could find. The board, and what I recommended this year, because it's a big year, because we've got a lot of projects we're looking for in 2024, I asked the board if they would have roundtable discussions with the residents, smaller groups during dinner where you can rotate around, meet the board members, make sure they comment to you about their vision. They now have a 5-year plan, and they're willing to do that over the next 2 weeks. So there'll be some sign-up sheets that Chris will have, and they'll be able to describe to you some of the more financial details, as well as the consultants that we've had in here looking at such things as pricings and adjustments. One of the last things is, as I talk about retention, we really do have some great employees, and I know you recognize them every day. Ellis and Doug now as incoming president, and Jerry, members of the council. You've had celebrations and wishes. That really goes a long way, because when I meet with employees, that's one of the key things, is what's going to keep them here? You know, what's going to keep them here? So I'm going to end there. In terms of upside possibilities of new revenue sources, I guess I'm not going to end there. I'm going to tell you about an opportunity. We have an opportunity for 2 new village homes, 1,600 square feet, and we're studying the possibility. The employees don't even know this yet, so I'm announcing it to our employees too, but the new employee parking lot's about 40% utilized. The smaller employee parking lot is an opportunity where we could fit 2 1,600 square foot village homes. And we think that if it goes forward, Joe's going to do some detailing work and city permitting, but we might be able to activate those by mid-July of this year. Beyond that, I used to say to myself, and the board would say to me, we're pretty much built out. But that is indeed about the last opportunity we have for village homes, unless we consider a mid-rise apartment building. And again, that's a lot of studies, because we don't have that much land to work with. The last thing, I'd be remiss if I didn't share with you my exit plan, which is the search committee. The search committee has met 2 times, and the next phase is to have the search committee meet with groups of our residents. And Chris is setting that up right now. We've hired a firm called DEFFET, D-E-F-F-E-T. They're a national long-term care search firm for facilities like ours. I think Doug and others that are on the search committee, or Doug was sitting in for Jerry, Ellis was out of town. We already started the profile, the ideal person that you might want for the CEO position to carry out a lot of these projects that are moving forward in the 5-year plan. So let me stop there. Any immediate questions? We'll have the data available for you copies. Yes, sir. The question was, when would the search be completed, which, the way I read that is, when are you out of here, Jack? I understand. They tell me that to do a comprehensive search and have the candidates come in and appropriately interview with members of your groups as well as the board, it's going to be probably at least a 3-month process. So you've got me for a while. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Jack, what input did, excuse me, what input did you have from the Resident Finance Committee in deciding about a 6% increase in monthly service fees?
Yes, we did meet with the Finance Committee as well as the council itself.
Well, I'm surprised. Monthly service fees ordinarily are not a source for capital funding. Capital funding ordinarily comes from retained earnings and borrowing.
Uh-huh.
You know, we pay for depreciation and the wear and tear on the building here while we're here. But capital items, usually in the corporate world, are not funded by operating revenue. So I'm surprised that the Resident Finance Committee didn't point this out to you.
Well, it just wasn't me. I just want to tell you how it flowed. We have a Finance Committee of the board as well. We have 2 outside members of that Finance Committee. They studied that quite detailed. So
I'm wondering the seriousness of resident input in that decision. Thank you.
okay.
When did you say the paperwork for the 5-year plan would be available to us? When and where?
Yeah, we can make it available right after this meeting. Yeah, the question was, when would the 5-year plan projects be available? And we can certainly make that available at the front desk when we leave. Okay.
Jack, I want to thank you for the tremendous job you're doing. And had the leadership in the last number of years been the caliber of leadership you are providing us, we wouldn't be having a lot of these issues. So we appreciate you and your leadership and the amount of unity that you're bringing into our community. So you're an answer to our prayers. On the other hand, and I'm just saying, I want to bring up an issue that when we came in here and when everybody comes into the village, they come in with a pot full of gold that they lay at Butterfield's front door. And that pot full of gold, I don't know what the reserves are, what they've accumulated to. I don't have privy to that. But I know that, and so when somebody passes away or moves out, that pot full of gold remains, and somebody comes and puts another pot full of gold at the doorstep. So last year we had a 5% increase, and for some of us, it's, you know, we've been blessed financially, and it's just like, oh my gosh, that's okay. But we also had a 10% vacancy rate, and I live in a townhome, a village home, and the resident who was our roommate moved out when Colton's was a restaurant down here. Colton's was demolished, and Chewy's was built up and had their grand opening before our new roommate moved in. Okay, so And I've noticed that, like in Lindsay Development, I know that's a different thing. Lindsay Development, you get a weekend and you've got a new renter in there. So what we need to have the board to look at ways to increase the turnover rate. And I know that vacancy rate has gone from 10%, and I think it's only, I don't know, about 5% now. That absence of 10% monthly fees, we were asked last year to underwrite a raise and pay for what 100% vacancy, 100% occupancy would have cushioned that increase. So all I'm saying is, anybody ask the board to participate in lowering the raise for a lot of people here that have lived here for a long time, and they moved in financially healthy, but right now they're looking at making ends meet. And so it's a hardship for a number of our neighbors. So has the board considered taking from some of the reserves, or like our neighbor said, using some of that for capital replacement and capital maintenance to lessen the amount of increase that we have this coming year? And also, so two questions: what's being done to accelerate the turnover, right? And can the board make a decision to participate and at least use some of that reserve fund for the capital improvements that are on the board? And I do this with all respect.
Sure, sure. Did you want to say something, Doug? Okay. Mr. Noogie, I fully understand, first of all. And just in sort of a big picture, we have an obligation of future expenses. So we do have $25 million in future expenses. That's your money that has to be reserved for those things, for future expenses. The board has had for a number of years, we're not embedded with a lot of debt, and that's a good thing. We've also had a recent actuarial study that has indicated that our pricing, not for existing residents, but for move-ins, is probably understated. We have almost 360, I believe is the last number, 340 in the waiting list in the Carriage Club. The demand, most frequent demand is, in matter of fact, for village homes, 1,600 square feet, and two-bedroom super apartments. So for us to address additional revenue, I mentioned to you we're trying to build 2 new village homes. We have recently met with the board, and the actuarial study was presented, and we are actually much better off than our peers. And what I mean by that is, even though we've had monthly service fee adjustments, we've not had mid-year assessments. And that's also what's happening in similar communities. And we're not going to plan on having any mid-year assessments. It's a very unusual year because of economy and coming off of COVID. Businesses are cranking up. The labor is the driver. So I wish we had a footprint and I could build a 3-story, 12-bedroom or a 12-apartment unit, but unfortunately, we're not there yet. Now the board has been thinking out of the box. Would we have a second division? Would other things happen? But that is the current spot that they're in, and we've idled the strategic planning committee. Some of you were on it. I think Marilyn Fields and a couple of our board members. But they want to wait till the new CEO's in place because that's a lot of study, a lot of long-term planning, and we'll have some consultants involved with that. So 2 things are going to happen. We're going to be presenting the pricing study results to the board, and this will not affect anybody in the room, but it will affect new entries. And we'll probably see an increase in fees for new entrants. The second thing is if we can get those 2 village homes up, that'll at least two more monthly service fees will help offset the operating cost. It's dynamic process, but we've got to stay at pace with labor, which is the major driver. I don't know if I exactly answered your question, but the board is indeed interested in that. There's some new board members, and I think you'll see that strategic planning committee roll out probably mid-year or first quarter. So, thank you. Yes.
I'm concerned that you speculate that these two new village homes can be completed in June, since it took 10 and a half months to get our cottage ready. I'm just.
Well, let me address that, and Joe can speak to some of these. Are we down to about 3.5 months now for turnover, Joe, for most units, which is a very good progress in terms of what you're used to. We've added a second crew in many situations. We've been able to hire painters and laborers and so forth. So that whole process is scaling down. Our goal is a 3-month turnover. So maybe what you experienced a year or so ago, I get it. And there was a lot of, now so every unit doesn't need as much renovation as some of the newer units. And when I talked to you about projecting out, because I believe it was Wolf, is Wolf here? Who sits on the board, by the way, his question was, can we expect these increases to continue? And when you look at the 5-year plan, you'll also see that there's a scale down in expenses related to repairs and maintenance. I say that because we're being more efficient in turning over units, and the units that we're starting to now turn over have less needs. And so some of the units where there may have been a resident for 20 or even 25 years had not had major upgrades. And the most recent units that we're seeing turning over, in fact, there's one that I actually walked through and I looked at it and I said, gosh, I'll move in tomorrow. But so there's less needs for the major redos for most of the units actually. So I don't know if that answered your question, but we're compressing that time and the time that it's compressed to get a resident in here. Mr. Nugier went right to the point, and that increases revenue because that cranks up monthly service fees. Now, the driver, and I didn't mention this because it's a work in progress. Today, we're at 41% occupancy in healthcare. We can't run a business at 41% occupancy and expect not to have it subsidized. So I know, and I'm not advocating, nobody wants to go to healthcare. It's why you're here, but we're doing some things to make it more, one, accommodating, and two, as we're renovating, and it's going to be a lot nicer place. And we were at a high of about 60 residents during COVID. Was that a high point for health pre-COVID? And so that has scaled down dramatically. But because that's another revenue source, meaning we can bill Medicare, we're down in that area.
So,
yes. Back row.
I'm curious, the village home across the street from us, instead of being renovated for a new person, it's being used for storage. And whoever's using it's leaving lights on and leaving the garage door open. And
I believe I walked through that unit the other day, and there are dishwashers and so forth, refrigerators that are in the garage there temporarily. And we don't have a storage, we don't have a warehouse. So when a unit is down and we move things around, you're going to see that. That's just what we have to do instead of renting a warehouse that's outside. Now, that's not to say that we're not marketing and getting ready to show those units. It's just temporarily storing items. Yes.
Our monthly service fees go up 5%, 6%. Do the entrance fees go up? Because the difference in what, my interest fee was just about what I paid, what I got for selling my house, and that house would sell for about 2.5 times that now.
Yes, that's the results that we are seeing in what's called the pricing study. And I'd be the first to tell you that we are undervalued in terms of what we're seeing in the market. So the consultant is sharing with us that we've got to adjust our entry fees, okay? And with 340 people on the waiting list, it kind of makes sense. We're a really good deal. And my wife's from Tulsa. I've been looking at the market in Tulsa for my 89-year-old father-in-law, and I went to a place called Montreux, and some of you may have been familiar with Montreux, but our fees are significantly lower than Montreux. Services are about the same. I've also looked at John Knox Village in Kansas City, who has several campuses, and we're not close to their fees as well. So we are value, and I'm glad for all of you residents that are here, but we've got to readjust it for new entries, okay? And Kelly and her team are fully capable of, there may be some folks that may drop out because of the entry fee magnitude, but I think we've got enough demand to raise those entry fee prices.
Would you speak more to the issue of increasing healthcare occupancy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. I have presented some reorganization and some enhancements to the healthcare facility that we have here. Now recognize, I spent 40 years in hospitals, so I understand the medical model. And in fact, you're not really different. We are a healthcare institution. That's why most of you have bought in to the Life Care Center. Beth and the healthcare committee that you have, I've met and presented some of the highlights that we're rolling out. One was changing management, get a more capable person that understands all the elements of healthcare, not just, quote, a nursing home administrator. We're not a typical in any way related to the nursing homes that you see around town. We are progressive. We have options. We have skilled care. We have assisted living. We have memory units. We also have a great affiliation that's not been used to the maximum in the form of UAMS. And I have met with Dr. Wright. I've met a couple of the vice chancellors, and we're going to see an expansion of opportunities and affiliations with UAMS. Right now, you're the only nursing home in Arkansas and the only skilled care facility and the only health care facility in a life care center that has a physician on site every day doing grand rounds with the team that is in health care. Now, what does that mean? What's a grand round? Well, when I was at UAMS, you start the day, the physician starts their day with the entire team, therapists, nutritionists, nurses, the caregivers. So that team is meeting every morning at 9 o'clock down in the training room, and I bet there's at least 15 people there, including social workers and others, and they go around and discuss the treatment plan for every resident. Every resident. You won't see that anywhere else. And with the physician involvement They go over the orders that are written. They go on the particular needs, whether it's therapy, wound care, on and on. And I just was so impressed. And Deb, who we've had as a consultant, we're going to expand on that. And so to answer your question, those are some big changes that we're doing. Yesterday, actually the beginning of the week, we had 12 nursing students from UAMS. They're coming through and learning, and this is a great opportunity in terms of the concentration of senior care. UAMS also has a physical therapy school, an occupational therapy school, and we'll see the rotations of those students in the near future. So we're going to expand the relationship, not go backwards. In addition, now this is all in addition to Dr. Wright's primary care office that's available to you all day long as well. So I don't know if that targeted what you wanted to hear, but okay.
Maybe just a rumor that you're going to open up the health care to outsiders. Is that true?
Well, first of all, I'm not, but it is a consideration that the consultants that we've had looking at the pricing study and gave us ideas of what other life care centers are doing to increase revenue, to offset operating costs. And what that all means is the ratio of healthcare beds to residents is 15 beds per 100 residents. So we're approximately 400. You can do the numbers. We would require 60 skilled beds. Right now we have 87 licensed beds. We have excess inventory. We have excess asset. Those of you who run businesses, that you have to find a solution to that. One of the options other life care centers are looking at is called direct admissions, private pay admissions. I'm not an advocate. We're just hearing the consideration. We would certainly look at that in detail. But by way of an example, is if we had 5 private pay admissions to the nursing home, to the skilled care, to the healthcare units that we have now, that would provide about $250,000 per length of stay during that episode for those patients. Now, the question is, we may not choose to do that at all. We would certainly want your involvement. We would not compromise in any way the agreement or the commitment to you. But we, one, are blessed with excess licensed beds, which, by the way, are hard to come by. You have to buy those either from another organization, and in fact, I was at Washington Regional when you purchased some of the beds from the old city hospital, if you remember that. And that's because the state of Arkansas license is they scale down the number of beds per the population. So we have 87 beds. We also have a license for 32 assisted beds in assisted care. We only are operating 15 right now. And by the way, we're pleased to say that census is now, looks like it's going to grow to 10. So we're getting more utilization in the assisted living unit, and that's a positive thing. So that is one possibility. Down the road, I'm not an advocate, but we have to hear the discussion and what would that do to our facility and upside or downside. So that was a good rumor. I don't know where you heard it, but I know it was discussed.
Yeah, I did not spread that rumor. Okay, but I like that. I didn't tell it to anyone, but I like that idea. And we have people in the Carriage Club that might be in the hospital and need a short stay. And then I like the idea of making the money. And then I also like that we have people in the community that are struggling to find a place when they come out of the hospital?
Let me address that in two different ways. And I want you all to understand, when one goes to healthcare, it's not a permanent decision. Doesn't have to be a permanent decision. In fact, there's nothing more than we would want to get you tuned up and get you ambulating or whatever it takes, rehabbed, and go back to your independent unit. So there's some misconception of what it means of going to healthcare. You can go there for 3 days, having a bad flu, and we'll accommodate that. And we have therapy on site. You don't have to go to the rehab hospital. And we just refinished and fluffed up our floor and our walls if you've been through the gym lately. And so we're relying on that. We have all the services right here. So.
Jack, I'm sorry, over here.
Oh, okay.
As a follow-up to that, I think about the time we moved in about 10 years ago, either before or shortly after that, healthcare was overflowing to the point where I think some residents may have been taken and put in a different nursing home, or at least that was the rumor. What has changed in the health? I mean, what are the dynamics that have changed that? Why are we now at such a low census?
I'm glad you asked that question, and you asked the right guy. In 1972, I was a senior in college, and I was on the debate team. And I went to Penn State University, and we had a debaters conference. And does anybody want to take a guess what the national collegiate debating topic was in 1972? Nationalized health care. I had no idea I would be in the business. We haven't changed. We're a sick care institution, and I say that because I studied the Canadian model, the European model, the Scandinavian models. That's nationalized health care. So to answer your question about utilization, one, we have more beds. We have 87 licensed beds. But how many people have read an article within the last year called Aging in Place? Okay, that's what's happening. We're in better health as a society in the United States. We have more services that can go to our homes, whether it's healthcare, companions. We have more opportunities. Well, if you look at your 400 I'm sorry, I keep calling you patients, your residents. We're no different, and that's a positive thing. That's a great thing, whether it's your activities with Jennifer, Ricky keeping you busy. We want you to age in place. So the utilization of our health care has indeed gone down. And we want to enable, back to the point of what we're doing to reorganize healthcare, I haven't really talked about what we call resident care. Resident care is the little offices we have on the corner before you go into healthcare. I have talked with Dr. Wright and members of UAMS, and we can expand that. We can offer more services to your homes, to your residences, so you can age in place. So that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. I don't know if that answered directly, but that's a trend nationally. Yes?
Just a quick follow-up. What happens if we reach a point, though, that the health center gets so positive that people want to be there?
Well, let me give you a good example, and I'm
sorry, and then there are no spaces left for the residents.
Yeah, your agreement goes like this. If we don't have a room for you, an appropriate room for you when we need it, we have to go buy it in the community at our cost, okay? So you're covered, okay? That's part of your agreement.
But that's not the same at all. Buying another apartment or another place to go is not what we signed up for. We want to be here.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying that's a backup plan if we don't, okay? Now, I'm not going to violate any HIPAA regulations, but all you have to do is ask somebody in the bistro who's in healthcare, and you'll find out, and that's fine. But you know, most of you and many of you have moved in here with couples, and you know, as a couple, the spouse or the husband, you know, you don't progress in the same way, and sometimes there's age differences. Where I'm going with this is the beauty of Butterfield Trail Village is we can have a family member in healthcare, and the other family member can continue to enjoy independent living. We have many examples of that, and we'll continue to. And that's the beauty of the model that we have here. So.
Okay, I was just thinking this morning after our meeting yesterday, and I thought, you know, what is the average stay in healthcare? I have no idea. Does
Well,
anyone? I'm sure somebody does.
We certainly have data, probably Patricia, and it does vary. And if I took a guess, I'd be wrong. I mean, a big guess is I know we have.
I mean, are there many people that go past, what is it, the 100 days that Medicare?
Absolutely. We've had people several
absolutely.
years. Yeah.
So, you know, bringing, you know, one of the concerns I brought up was, and this is the discussion that you're having about bringing outside people in.
Mm-hmm.
If we need that and we've got those people here, we can't ask them to leave, and we need that space.
First of all, let me restate. I'm not an advocate of that model. I'm just saying that the consultants are suggesting and showing us that other institutions do that. And you're right. We if somebody runs out of there, I think it's 100 days of Medicare, then they come to private pay, then it becomes a moral decision, you know, if that person can't pay. And we don't want to go down that road, if you will. We want to take care of our residents, which your agreement signed up for. I only brought it up because the rumor was out there from somebody, right? And I hope you know me by the month and a half that I've been here. I'm totally transparent. I'm not making any of this up. So.
I'd like to add, since the discussion came up about occupancy, that has been a concern of everyone ever since I've been here 4.5 years, pushing 5. We have dealt with that in the village homes and the apartment complex, everything else. And the occupancy right now is 96%. So we're 6% better than we were 2 years ago. And we're still working on that. And some of you may know that in the works, once the board gets through with the land use study and we figure out a place, there are plans to build a paint shop so nobody's having to give up a 2-bedroom apartment for the construction people to paint. And you could carry that one step further regarding the supply chain. Yes, one of the units right now is storing equipment, refrigerators and so forth, that were ordered a long time ago so they'd be here in time, and then sometimes they get here before we're ready to use them. They've got to go somewhere. So while we're examining the paint shed, we may want to get an unconditioned space to put stuff like that so it's not slowing down the operation. But I think Joe and his team are doing everything they can to correct this occupancy problem. Because when I read the status report at the meetings, I'd rather say we've got a 98% occupancy rather than a 96. So it is being worked on, and it is a valid point. What's that? You can't sell the guest suite.
Yeah. Thank you, Doug. And I actually have data. We'll make that available to you. But just to give you an idea, this is of September 30th. The most frequent request is for that 1,600 bed units. The two-bedroom, if you combine the two-bedroom standard and the two-bedroom deluxe, that's the next largest group out of the 340. So, and Doug's right. We're working really hard, Joe's team really hard on the efficiency of the turnover. So, any other comments or questions? And I do expect or get a hold of Chris, because the board is going to want those small group meetings over the next couple of weeks. I have a question back here. Wow, that's a good question. The question is, how long can the people stay on the Carriage Club? Yeah, let me address that in two different ways. When the company that we hired, which is called Greystone, to do the pricing study, they also look at, other people call it different names, not Carriage Club, but different names. It's a waiting list. And there are different services they get from being a member of the Carriage Club. They also have different conditions by which you stay on the Carriage Club. Like you can only bypass 2 options and then maybe you don't get an option. You're off the waiting list. So the policy that we have right now is really very limited. In essence, no policy. And I personally know of people that have been on the Carriage Club as many as 10 or 12 years. So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at not only the rules and regulations of being on the waiting list, but the price of being on the waiting list and the services that we offer to be on the Carriage Club, whether it's the swimming pool or the meals and so forth. So that's a good question, and it's certainly a revenue source for us, but we want people to be timely in their decisions, if you will, of when or they're really not ready to move in. So Kelly maybe has a lot better information. You can certainly ask Kelly and her team, but I have a list right here of what everybody wants. And quite frankly, if it's not the right one or the location, our policy has no conditions of them saying, okay, well, I'll pass. So.
When we met with the search team yesterday, the bottom line was we told them that we wanted them to clone Jack 10 to 20 years younger.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I think I better close it down on a good note. So. We actually, yesterday we had 78 surveys in. They're going to Chris. They'll be analyzed, go to the board. I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, here I am. I've been here a month and a half, and I said, really? You want to send a survey out while I'm here? But we are getting good response. I'm told that of the 360 that you sent out, we normally get about 125 to 140. So responses are actually coming in at a higher rate this year. So the board will analyze those. Chris will do the statistics on them. I have no problem with them going to the resident council to help prioritize some of our operations. So they won't be ignored if that's, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But Chris can give you the details on how many we've gotten in and how we're going to be sorting and analyzing. Well, thank you all very much.